I gave presentations based on the book at Brown University, Georgetown University, the Free University of Berlin, the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, Swarthmore College, McGill University, Providence College, the University of New Mexico, Tufts University, and the University of California at Berkeley, as well as at the annual conferences of the American Political Science Association and the International Studies Association. Part of Chapter 6 draws from Peter Andreas, Smuggler Nation, How Illicit Trade Made America, and the introduction and conclusion draw from my essay, Drugs and War, What is the Relationship?, in the Annual Review of Political Science. Many friends and colleagues gave much appreciated feedback and advice at various stages of the project, including Nick Barnes, David Courtwright, Cornelius Friesendorf, Rich Fryman, Paul Gutenberg, Pat Herlihy, Jim Kurth, Rose McDermott, Rahul Medirata, Tom Naylor, and Mark Schrad. My editor, Dave McBride, took this project on when it was merely a rough draft of a proposal, generated detailed external reader reports that greatly improved the book, and gently prodded me at just the right moments. Emily Mackenzie at Oxford University Press helped me check off all the boxes before final submission and shepherded the manuscript into production. My agent, Rafe Sagalin, was wonderful and wise as always. The writing was slowed down and indeed momentarily derailed by the arrival of Stella and Annika into this world. I dedicate this book to Kristen, who somehow managed to handle me and our two rambunctious girls without resorting to either drugs or war. Introduction: How Drugs Made War and War Made Drugs. After years of unchecked drug trafficking and the bribing of local officials to look the other way, the frustrated government authorities finally cracked down, seizing and destroying tons of illicit shipments. Undeterred, the furious traffickers retaliated with military force, provoking an all-out drug war. It was both a war against drugs and a war for drugs. Drugs won. This may sound like a Mexican border town in recent years, but the year was 1839, and the place was the Chinese port city of Guangzhou, also known as Canton. For decades, the British East India Company, by far the largest drug trafficking organization in the history of the world, had orchestrated the shipping of ever-increasing amounts of Indian opium into China in flagrant violation of official bans. And when the Chinese authorities finally got serious about enforcement, Britain responded by sending troops and gunships to keep the opium floodgates open. The Opium War profoundly shaped the fate of China and the imperial reach of Britain for the next century. Britain, it turns out, was not only the world's first true narco-state, but also a narco-empire. This episode is only one particularly prominent example of the age-old relationship between warfare and psychoactive substances. The relationship has ranged from using drugs to motivate soldiers to using drug profits to pay them, from going to war to secure drug markets to using the instruments of war to suppress them. In various ways and in various forms, the drugs-war relationship has fueled imperial expansion, provoked rebellion and revolution, built up states, and helped to create not only addicted armies, but also nations of addicts. In this book, I tell the story of this long, symbiotic relationship between drugs and war, and the politics that surrounds it. I show how drugs made war and war made drugs. I do so by tracing the history of war through the lens of drugs, and the history of drugs through the lens of war. In other words, drug history is retold as military history, and military history is retold as drug history. I do not simply reduce war to drugs or drugs to war, of course, but I do stress that there are key questions about both war and drugs that we cannot adequately answer without understanding their relationship. Take the most devastating war of the 20th century. What explains the astonishing speed of the Blitzkrieg? What sustained the morale of Londoners during the darkest days of the Battle of Britain? How did the Japanese finance their occupation?